Aviso. ¿Qué se entiende por libertad de expresión? La libertad de expresión es el derecho de pensar y compartir con otras personas ideas, reflexiones y opiniones, es decir, el derecho a razonar y dar a conocer pensamientos y conocimiento. La libertad de expresión también incluye el derecho a buscar, recibir y difundir ideas, opiniones e informaciones por cualquier medio y con personas de cualquier otro país. Nadie tiene el derecho de prohibir o limitar la libertad de expresión. La libertad de expresión no está restringida a un medio tradicional o electrónico, incluye periódicos, revistas, radio, televisión y medios digitales. El derecho a la libertad de expresión no está limitado o condicionado por las fronteras de los países hacia otros países y desde cualquier lugar. Artículo 6 y 7 de la Constitución Política de los Estados Unidos Mexicanos y artículo 19 de la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos.
We're joined today by Dr. Rima Laibow, who's been on with us a few times now. Dr. Laibow is truly, or Dr. Rima as she's affectionately known, truly one of the, I think one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to the globalist steps that have been taken in history through these organizations such as the World Health Organization in conjunction with the United Nations and many, many others for this global takeover. And today we're going to talk about the new pandemic tabletop exercise that they've conducted, Catastrophic, Contagion. James Roguski's written a fantastic Substack alerting the world as well. We've got Canada beginning to euthanize people openly, telling people, are you sad? You need to kill yourself and we'll help you do it. And so much more on these tabletop exercises, and also the WHO treaty, what we need to do to stop it. So much to unpack here. Dr. Rima, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it is always a pleasure to be here, Maria. Does this sound good?
The sound is great. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. All right, so we need to talk about Catastrophic, Contagion. The same players that brought us Event 201 have just done in October of this year, and the world's been alerted to it now, have just done a new pandemic tabletop exercise. Now, here's what I find interesting, Dr. Rima. We're going to play the footage in a moment for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's been circulating, but I think it's important for people to see the propaganda. They've sold this. I've watched additional videos. They've sold this as, we need to do these exercises to prepare the authorities for their response. But people don't really understand these tabletop exercises, do they?
I do not. The World Economic Forum has famously been grooming. This is grooming. It's political, not sexual grooming. They've been grooming, quote, young leaders, which means anybody that they can draw into their pernicious net and compromise and send out as one of their people, like Trudeau and Jacinda Ardern. There are so many of them who are out there singing the song of slavery and depopulation for those who are not enslaved, of transhumanism, etc. And they've been groomed. Well, there's another kind of grooming going on for decision makers. For example, for the public health officials from Senegal, Rwanda, Nigeria, Angola, Liberia, Singapore, India, Germany. Why are those people being groomed at a tabletop exercise? And there will be many, many more tabletop exercises. They are being predictively programmed to believe that there is such a thing as a pandemic in the modern world. And I contend that there is no such thing as a pandemic in a modern society. There is no such thing as chronic degenerative widespread disease in a modern society unless the people running that modern society's medical care want there to be a pandemic. There is no such thing as healthcare that supports the existence of a pandemic. There is illness management that supports the existence of a pandemic. Modern societies with clean food, sanitation, and hygiene do not have pandemics because the immune system of the people in that society is protected and is functioning sufficiently so that people get sick and then they get well. And few people die because people do die. They die from this and that and the other thing. But what we're being conditioned to believe, and what the leaders, the decision makers of these who come to these tabletop exercises thinking that they're preparing for something, what they're preparing for is to act as they have been groomed to act. They are being miseducated and misinformed and disinformed about what health is, what illness is, and what the proper response of a society is if there is a threatened illness. It is not what they're being taught. What they're being taught is that the only logical thing to do is what we've just done. And those are the worst possible measures to induce health, but they're the best possible measures to induce surveillance, suppression, death, and slavery. These people are participating, all the tabletop conferees are participating in predictive programming for disastrous tyranny. And we must stop this. Why are our federal or national funds being allotted to send these people to these exercises? Why are they being permitted? We wouldn't allow the mafia to educate our bankers on how to be more corrupt than they already are, not publicly, of course, but that's exactly what we're allowing here.
I agree with you. I want to bring up Strengthening Australia's Pandemic Preparedness Report. Zee Media did a very, very in-depth report of this, Dr. Rima, and it's crucial for this conversation. I've been talking about this report ever since I released it. It's crucial for this conversation, and I really just want to bring this up on our website right now for everyone. Uncensored. This was on Uncensored that we did it. Australia's blueprint for the next planned 5 global pandemics. If you want to understand what Dr. Rima is talking about right now is exactly what is in this report. They talk about the fact that we need to increase surveillance, all of the surveillance measures that were implemented during COVID in pockets, Dr. Rima, we need to PCR test everyone in this area. You can't go to work without a negative result, all of this sort of stuff. Then in this report, which, by the way, was we released it at the same time of the announcement of the Global Pandemic Centre, which will be run here out of the testing ground of the New World Order that is Australia. Within this report, they talk about the testing that people will need to be submit to on a regular basis to prevent pandemics. So not only have they done this tabletop exercise to tell you there is a new pandemic coming, it's one that's going to kill kids, severe epidemic enterovirus respiratory syndrome 2025. It's going to disproportionately affect children. But now to stop this, you need to go through regular surveillance, regular testing, all of the things that they war gamed on us as lab rats during the time of so-called COVID-19.
Correct. Absolutely. Now, I want to point out that everything that they're calling health is actually illness. Everything that they're calling public is actually controlled corporate system. These people take language and they invert it.
Yes.
So anything they say is actually the exact opposite of what they have just said. They're talking about an enterococcus. They're talking about a respiratory syndrome from an enterococcus. And that's very interesting. They're talking about basically getting pneumonia from fecal contamination. Gosh, how would that happen? Why would you be breathing fecal contaminants or getting them into your nose? Well, perhaps because the hygiene in your society is not particularly good. Perhaps because sewage management isn't good. Perhaps because food standards are very low. And perhaps because the stuff is sprayed. But people occasionally do get enteroviruses, that is gut viruses, in their bodies. They occasionally do get gut bacillus, gut bacteria into their bodies. In 2007, a paper was published about a respiratory syndrome, a pneumonia that a guy got because he got fecal material somehow, fecal contaminants reproducing in his lungs. He breathed something or other, or he had contaminated fingers and picked his nose or something. It's rare. It's very rare. And the author makes the point, and I think I put the reference on our chat so you can reference this for people. The author makes the point that this is probably likely to happen on a regular basis because contamination is pretty widespread in the world, but it's a minor nothing. And as people's immune systems, with or without antibiotics, take care of whatever inflammation they get in their lungs, goes away. It's not a big deal. It happens, no big deal. Rare to be diagnosed because generally the body takes care of it when it occurs without any particular notice. Now, why are they talking about it now? Unless maybe they've got a bioweapon ready to go. Maybe they've taken a virus from the gut or a bacterium from the gut, and they've bioengineered it to turn it into another weapon. Could be.
We'd be very naive to think that they haven't already planned for this, Dr. Rima,
course.
because it's already in their documents. I want to go back to this strengthening Australia's pandemic preparedness. What people, if you read this document, it's not very long. I encourage people to have a read through it. But if you're not going to read it, at least watch the report I brought up before, because it really, we break the whole thing down. What this document calls for, Dr. Rima, is a legalization and increase of gain of function research. The reason for that being because climate change and human encroachment on animal environments is going to bring about all of these zoonotic diseases that previously we weren't exposed to. So what they're saying is we need to do more gain of function because of climate change, which is essentially telling you we're going to continue engineering bioweapons to harm you, and here's our excuse to do it.
They don't need an excuse. They've already been doing it for a very long time. And so they're propagandizing the leaders. And by the way, the heavy concentration of African leaders in the list of people who attended this Contagion tabletop game that we heard about, that we're talking about, the African leaders are there, I believe, because the only significant opposition to the international health regulation Biden amendments, the 13 Biden amendments, came from Africa. It was only the African countries who said, wait a minute, you want to do what? You want to do total surveillance? You want to do your One Health? When you hear the phrase One Health, you need to be very frightened. You want to do your One Health, you want to do your pandemic preparedness. Well, what do we get out of it? We're not getting enough out of it. And so the African pushback was what essentially caused the 13 Biden amendments to be taken off the table. And I know you've talked to your readers and listeners about those 13 Biden amendments. Well, they're back, they're leaving only one, which was about the time frame. Well, they're back on the table. Not only are they back on the table, these are the international health regulation amendments. Not only are they back on the table, but there have been secret meetings with a brand new organization that was just created to have these secret meetings so that you and I don't get to know what's being negotiated with the significant stakeholders. And we are not significant. We are not relevant stakeholders. We're just cockroaches to be eliminated or moved aside or done with whatever they please in their minds. These people are crazy. Let us be clear. These people are well financed, and they are absolutely without human decency, but they're also absolutely crazy, because the insanity is that they can think of these things and do them. The insanity, the conspiracy is very real, but the problem is that normal people can't imagine doing any of this. So they say, that couldn't be real. And you and I understand, as awful as it is, telling children in Canada that they're allowed to decide to end their own lives through euthanasia with the lovely name of MAID by the Canadian government is insane beyond a level of craziness that any normal person anywhere in the world from any culture could conceive of. And yet, this is government reality. And it will be in Australia and the United States and Indonesia and Argentina. It will be universal because these bastards have decided that the only people who matter are they themselves. And the only needs that matter are their own needs. This is a perfect definition of a psychopath.
It is, and
No
they
one-
pretend that they pretend, Dr. Rima, that they care. We just spoke about this briefly offline. They pretend they care, for example, about the transgender community. They're elevating the transgender community up so high, and yet all of these detransitioning adults are now coming out saying, I was manipulated as a child. I wasn't even counseled properly. I was just pushed into this surgery, these hormone treatments, and now I'm depressed and I hate my life. And Canada's solution to that is oh, well, that's okay. Just kill yourself.
Well,
just
just
kill
kill you.
yourself. Yeah, we're just going to euthanize you because you're clinically depressed now because we push propaganda on you to make you think that this was the right way to live your life, and we were going to support you in all of that. And, you know, now that you're not happy, we just kill yourself. And I don't know if everyone's seen that video, Dr. Rima, of how they're glorifying in Canada. You know what? I'm going to bring it up right now for anyone who hasn't seen it, how they're glorifying the idea of assisted suicide.
Last breaths are sacred. When I imagine my final days, I see bubbles. I see the ocean. I see music. Even now, as I seek help to end my life, there is still so much beauty. You just have to be brave enough to see it.
It is absolutely astounding that we're living in times, Dr. Rima, where this is being painted as something beautiful, something positive, to go and just kill yourself because you can't stand the world that you live in anymore, that they are creating.
Do you have drag queen story hours for toddlers in your libraries in
Yes.
Australia? We have that in the United States, and it's supposed to be wonderful. It's supposed to be family friendly, when in fact the entire program of these murderous monsters, and let's call them what they are, they're not the elite, these are the empowered crazies. These are the craziest of the crazies. They're very well financed, but the craziest of the crazies have decided that anything that strengthens what we call family values in any way is in fact to be destroyed at the most extreme levels. And so when you have men dressed up as caricatures of hypersexualized women dancing suggestively in front of toddlers and asking the toddlers to put money into their underwear, which is their costume, as if the toddlers were participating in a sexual ritual where gender is confused and normalcy is confused and affiliation is confused and love and sex are confused in the developing minds of tiny children. What are you saying about health, mental or otherwise? What are you saying about security? What are you saying about a society? How are you building a society? You are not. You are asking people to participate in tearing down their own internal and external structures so that those structures are weaker and more easily destroyed by the pushes that are being applied by the quote healthcare system, by the quote social system, by the protection system, by the God help us educational system. And that is what is going on. We have slaves who are declaring that they are good slaves because they wouldn't think about being free, because they're being programmed and they're glad to go along.
That is,
So
you put that really, that's powerful, Dr. Rima, and incredibly well put. They're glad to be going along with the ways that they're being programmed for their destruction. That is what we're watching unfold before our very eyes, because if we weren't, more people would be in uproar about, you know, the Balenciaga scandal, for example. Every single store would be shut. Every single store around the world would be shut because no one would shop there anymore. But yet we still have people, not only people that continue to shop there, but people that defend it. They defend child pornography. They defend the idea of holding people down and forcibly injecting them. They defend the idea of encouraging suicide and child mutilation. People are sick, Dr. Rima, and it's not just the globalists.
Fluoride. A long time ago, I said, not a good idea, along with a lot of other people. Why is it not a good idea? Well, for a lot of reasons. It increases cancer rates, especially in young boys. Osteosarcoma, a very, very, very aggressive form of cancer, seems to be much more common in boys under 11 who have been drinking fluoridated water. It increases tooth decay. It disrupts the hormones and causes diabetes. It does a whole lot of bad things, but that's not the real problem with fluoride, and that's not why it was used. As far increases in infertility, decreases intelligence. Okay, those are general bad things that any drug might do. What it really does, that's most important, is it makes people tractable. It makes people apathetic. And it does that in a very interesting way. The pineal gland seems, the so-called third eye, seems to really have a function, not only in producing melatonin and sleep regulation and a whole bunch of other things, including cancer protection, but the pineal gland also seems to act as, if you will, an antenna for connection with more than just my meat body, more than just my meat reality. It seems to act as an antenna for connection with the wider information world. Some people call it spiritual, some people call it God, some people call it intuition. You can call it, galoshes. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it's a very important, maybe one of the most important parts of what makes a human being a truly integrated human being. And
Yes.
so if you turn that into a rock, if you calcify it, it no longer is functioning tissue. It is a rock in the middle of your head. It receives no signals. It directs nothing. And without it, it seems to be that you become apathetic and tractable because you've lost your moral compass. Now, we have moral compasses of many different sorts. These people define good things one way. These people define good things another way. But there is no group of people that does not have a central moral compass that they build their society around, that they build their families around, that they build their institutions and their law and their social structures around, that they build their sense of right and wrong around. And to do that, we humans have a pineal gland. We don't understand the exceptional functioning of the pineal gland, but we know that without a pineal gland, you don't have that. You turn it into a rock. Go online, look up fluoride and calcification of the pineal gland. This is not make-believe, gee, she thinks that happens. This is physiological disruption, turning an organ, the pineal gland, with little known functions but observable functions, into a non-functional piece of mineral debris. And
But
when you do that,
sorry, do go on.
when you do that, What you have is people who have no moral compass, no mother, no father, no grandmother, no aunt, no uncle, no teacher, who looks at a child and sees the disruption that's going on and the insanity that's being introduced into their lives, who has a functioning moral compass, will remain silent. It is not possible. We are not constructed to allow this kind of harm to our children. And yet, without a moral compass, we say, oh, well, I guess it's okay. I mean, that's what the school board says. So yeah, I don't want the neighbors to be, to think I'm not woke. So, wow. I guess it's okay.
These same people that don't have the moral compass that you're talking about, Dr. Rima, to stand up for the children when it comes to the sexualization of them, will be the same people that will turn on people like you and I and the viewers of this broadcast when they say, oh, catastrophic contagion was another tabletop exercise that they conducted. It's not actually a real situation, or if it is, they've actually constructed it in order to harm these children because they're telling us it's going to disproportionately affect and kill children. The way that they're telling you to protect these children is not actually the way. They're the same people that will turn on us when we tell them this. It's absolutely bizarre. And I maintain that the problem is that society is godless for the most part, Dr. Rima. My viewers know that I feel very strongly about this. And, there are so many people that may have just realized over the past 2 years what's actually happening. They may have been high consumers of fluoride previously, but I believe that strong, the strong listening to your conscience and your heart will overcome your rock fluoride pineal gland if you choose. If you choose to do what's right, I believe it can be overcome. I don't think that it's hopeless for people when we talk about, because you and I have spoken about, the food supply, Codex Alimentarius, everything that they're doing to poison us today that was planned long ago. I believe that through faith in God, we can overcome that if we do what's right, if we are obedient. This is how I see the world. So I know that attacks are coming at me, but I don't have to be subjected to those attacks. And I'll certainly never turn into someone that thinks that we should be advocating for minor attracted persons. You understand what I'm saying here?
I understand exactly what you're saying. And we still have free will. Of that, there is no doubt. I am asked all the time, people say, but my husband, my brother, my wife, my sister, my friend, my teacher, my neighbors, they still think the vaccine is wonderful. And what do I do? And I've come to the personal decision that they'll come along, those who are still alive, and most of them will not be unless we carry out the research that needs to be done to find out how to disinfect people, both those who have received the jabs directly and those who have been contaminated by those who have received an intentionally contagious jab. We've talked about that.
Yes.
But there are people who get it. There are people like you, like your listeners, like me, like our subscribers to our email list. There are people who are saying, no, this can't happen. We must stop this juggernaut of death rolling toward us. And so those are the people to whom I speak. The others will come along or they will not. But we, and this is true, we understand this from social psychology, it takes a very small percentage of the population to change the direction of the entire population.
Yes.
Generally 2% is the agreed upon figure. 2% dedicated to making something happen generally are sufficient to do so in spite of the enormous odds of the opposition.
Well, I'm proud to be part of that 2% with you, Dr. Rima. Let me tell you, I will never, ever give in to these maniacs.
Never, ever give in to these maniacs. Exactly. And their solution is, okay, then we'll kill you. So we have to be effective at what we do, because there is no, in my view, there is no intermediate position. There is no taking the Chamberlain route by trying to appease these people. because they have declared war on us, on our genes, on our lives, on our freedom, on every aspect of humanity. And consequently, what I see is that we, the people, all of us people, have to start using the most potent tool that we have. You're using it by putting out your videos and your reports and your communications and doing interviews with people like me. I'm using it by doing the same, but I have added one tool that I invite you and everyone listening to you to join me in using. I ride the Freedom Mouse. If you go to a website called preventgenocide2030.org, preventgenocide2030.org, and you go to the home page there, you will see there's a tab called Act Now, or you can just scroll down the home page. And when you do that, you will see buttons, and you get to click those buttons, and you get to send emails that you can edit. We've set it up so you can write what you want to the decision makers who are captive apparatchiks to this death system that you and I have been talking about. Now, one email is not going to do anything. The way, for instance, the no vaccine passport, and vaccine passport is not just a vaccine passport. Are you vaxxed? Are you unvaxxed? It is a total surveillance system. It is a biometric, a financial, a social score, and a total life control surveillance system, which the G20 leaders agreed on November 21st to bring into world reality
For the next pandemic.
Well, before the next pandemic, at the next World Health Assembly meeting, which is a World Health Organization annual meeting, rubber stamp operation. And they said, good, let's do this. But they've also said, good, let's do a whole lot of other things. Their declaration that Biden signed on the 21st of November is, Maria, the scariest document I have ever read. It is well laid out. It is clear in every sphere how everything that we hold dear and believe is important and inevitable in our lives will be destroyed.
I want to get into it. I want to get into that document, but I want to bring up now really quickly the Catastrophic Contagion page.
Can I just finish what happens?
Yes,
so if you live in the United States and you take the action at the on the preventgenocide2030.org site, we have 92,000 plus targets. Everyone who works for the federal, the state, the municipal, or the local level who has anything to do with the implementation of this surveillance system will receive your email. When I sent it out in the state of Arizona, where I live, 635 people received it from me. In California, 970 people received it because they're structured a little differently. We need to flood these people with our opposition and our demand that this be undone immediately and life be returned to us in our hands, in our own free will capacity as sovereign citizens. So I urge you, there's one more thing about that website. When you click on the Act Now button, you'll see proposed new action. You have an issue that's important to you, fill out the form. We'll put it in your hands. We'll give you the link and you flood the people who make the decisions that are undermining your freedom in the way that you like. This is a tool for people who are seeking freedom. No charge. We pay a lot of money for it, but it doesn't matter. It's there for us to pound on the decision makers who are our servants so that they do not destroy us through this programming and corruption. The level of corruption of these people is mind-boggling.
It's inconceivable.
Yes.
Forgive me. I've just brought up what you were talking about on the screen for the viewers, Dr. Rima, just to help them navigate the website on preventgenocide2030.org. The reason why people need to, the reason why we discuss all of these tabletop exercises, plans of the globalists, you know, it's not that we're somehow, you know, you've said some things on the broadcast with me, Dr. Rima, that people will look back in 5 years and go, how did she know that? It's because you read their documents. It's because you study their plans. And you know, these things are not difficult to figure out how they're going to achieve it if we just study their plans, which is why I think it's so crucial for people to understand their plans and then take the action. I want to play the clip of that tabletop exercise right now of Catastrophic Contagion, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to get back to the action that can be taken. Have a look at this.
Officials in 2 Latin American countries alerted the WHO of several outbreaks of a new infectious disease that's mysteriously appearing across the region. Severe Epidemic Enterovirus Respiratory Syndrome 2025. Over the past 6 weeks alone, there have been 500 confirmed or suspected cases reported. The virus could cause a severe pandemic if early containment and mitigation efforts are not successful.
The pandemic in this type of situation and trend would be a risk for the global health security.
Pandemics are inherently political, financial, and so much broader.
We have not spoken on the leadership in country. And I think that we need to be also very careful. We cannot decide a lot of things without the leaders be involved and agree on that.
There is no substitute for national leadership.
It's important to support the local response or the national response.
Training those that are in these areas first, enabling them with the tools, protecting them, and if needs be, regional solidarity first.
At this stage, communication is key, and communication should include not just scientists with data, but also social, religious, and political leaders.
Trust. This is an essential issue, and trust was broken among countries, between populations and healthcare systems, between healthcare systems and governments.
I'm very sorry to say that in 2025, we need to strengthen the health system.
WHO needs to be a voice for the voiceless.
No one is safe until all of us are safe.
As of today, there have been an estimated 1 billion cases worldwide, with more than 20 million deaths, including nearly 15 million children. Countless millions are alive, but left with paralysis or brain damage. The most successful countries are those which invested in preparedness and trained for this moment years in advance. This included having full-time pandemic preparedness and response teams, which conducted detailed operational planning and routinely tested those plans through exercises and drills. If more countries had participated and heeded the guidance, the toll might have been much less.
So that was essentially the same thing that they did with Event 201, where they tell you that they told us that a respiratory virus was coming. There was going to be a huge pandemic, kill all these people, which it didn't. And now they've released this catastrophic contagion propaganda. So my understanding, and of course it's your usual suspects: Johns Hopkins, Bill and Melinda Gates. And they're telling us that, you know, this is going to disproportionately affect children. You've also, on the Johns Hopkins website right here, tabletop exercises. They've done catastrophic contagion. They've done Event 201. Excuse me. Previously, they've done others, including Dark Winter, which Joe Biden made reference to in a particular press conference last year. But they do this. Now, there's a combination that's happening here, Dr. Rima, and talk to me about your understanding of these exercises. Part of it is when they do them, they don't necessarily follow through, because if they followed through with every single one, it would be too obvious. So not every single tabletop exercise results in a global pandemic. But the last one did, and this one is looking very similar, and it looks to be right in line with with the World Health Organization bringing in their treaty. Talk to us about where you see this going.
Tabletop exercises are training activities for the people who will act like puppets for them. They're put in place to do their bidding, and they're told, oh, you're a good girl, you're a good boy, you know what to do. We've rehearsed this, and look, here's the pandemic situation. You're ready to go, and you have all the tools. You have new vaccines. And by the way, we've talked about this, and I think we've shown the slide from WHO's implementation manual for its Agenda 2030 vaccination program, that each of us will receive 500 new vaccines plus all the old ones, and there will be no exemptions. This is every man, woman, and child on the planet. Look at the harms that have been done through just the COVID-19 vaccines. Look at the deaths. Look at the autoimmune disasters. Look at the coming losses. Look at the infertility. That's just one type of vaccine. They've got 499 others planned, including an anti-fentanyl vaccine. Why do you need an anti-fentanyl vaccine? Not clear to me. What do I know? I'm just a physician. So the point is that they have all their plans laid clearly, and they use these tabletop exercises to do several things. One is to give validity, because you have all these people sitting around who are well-dressed and they're authoritative, and Bill Gates and Johns Hopkins University, and this must be real because look, these are big people and they're taking this very seriously. And then they make predictions. They use modeling, like Nigel Ferguson's modeling. Oh, splendid modeling. Now, the way you do modeling, apparently, is to decide what you want to have happen, multiply it by 20, and then say that's what your model says is going to happen. And then it becomes some kind of official reality. Oh, there's a model. There's a mathematician or a physicist or a biostatistician or a university professor or a janitor has just said that 15 million children are going to die, or 150 million children, or 6.5 children. You can say anything you want. This is based on what comes out of the rear end of a bull. And people believe it because it's reported. And if it's reported, it must be true, because these university people and these officials said it must be true, even though it's come out of a public relations committee or somebody's personal inspiration. And disinformation is the name of the game. Why don't they all come true? Why don't all the tabletop exercises come true? They don't tell me, but this is my supposition. This is my understanding of it. This is my analysis. Each one is a trial balloon, and they float it up and they see if anybody pays attention to it. And the ones that get people really hysterical or bestirred or that they can get buy-in to and hysteria building about, that's the one they make happen. That's how I see it.
Very, very plausible. The other thing is, again, like I said, you know, if they were to actually proceed with every single tabletop exercise, it would be obvious that these were actually the planning events for the pandemics that they're creating. So they can't make every single one a reality, because then it would be too obvious. What I do think people need to be aware of, though, is that although this one, again, could be one of those, I guess you can call them false flags, because they're talking about putting out, they put out their own disinformation to get us confused, right? But when we look at the timelines, Dr. Rima, and we're going to go through the conceptual zero draft in a moment, when we look at the timelines of the WHO wanting to implement this new treaty, they're saying by 2024, however, it's looking like they could speed it up to next year in May of 2023. And all of the countries releasing these reports, putting in these measures, G20 leaders, B20 talking about how we need a global vaccine, all of it is pointing to the fact that they want a new pandemic. In fact, when in the Strengthening Australia's Pandemic Preparedness Response report, they call for all of this needing to be in place by 2027 to prepare for the next pandemic. So it is clear to me that any time between 2025 and 2027 is when these people are angling for. But people must be on guard because it could literally happen tomorrow. We don't know what's been injected into people. We don't know what's been programmed. We don't know what 5G is going to do. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a very simple-minded question. I'm a simple-minded person.
You're hardly simple-minded.
Did we have a pandemic?
No.
I didn't notice a pandemic. I noticed a great deal of propaganda.
Yeah.
I noticed a great deal of illness caused by a supposed response or protective response to prevent transmission and serious disease and all that nonsense. I noticed that. I noticed kidney failure and death from ventilator remdesivir protocols. I noticed a lot of money flowing around PCR diagnoses, which have zero utility in determining whether somebody has any kind of illness named COVID. I noticed a lot of that, actually a hysterical amount of that. But I'm sorry, I actually didn't notice a pandemic. I noticed a minor disease, which, when neglected, could get worse. And then people could get really sick from it. But I guess I must have been asleep under the table, Maria, because I missed the pandemic. Did we have one when I wasn't looking?
I've told the story. I've been open about this publicly, Dr. Rima, that right at the start of when the propaganda was coming out of people dropping dead on the streets in China and all of this nonsense, I was actually coming back from Serbia. And I went through Asian countries and Asian airports during this time, and all these people were muzzled. And I thought, my goodness, what's going on? My mum called me. She said, there's this stuff going around on the news, all these people dropping dead. Just be careful. And when I came back, I was incredibly ill. I was struggling to breathe, Dr. Rima, to go even from my couch to my kitchen sink. I needed to take a rest, right? I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I got hit by 5G. I don't know. But what I do know is that I recovered with vitamin C and chicken soup. I'm not even kidding you, right? This is all it took. So, did we have a pandemic? No, I don't think we did. And you're right. You're absolutely right. See, when you look at things like influenza, common cold, regardless of what you think these things are, I don't want to get into the virus versus no virus debate right now. Whatever it is, the official figures say that influenza kills X amount of people in certain years. It killed more people in 2019 than COVID did in 2020 in Australia. It's, you know what I mean? So, and it affected the elderly just like influenza would. So really, there was no pandemic. There really was no pandemic. It was a PCR pandemic, exploded through a faulty PCR, which they're going to keep using for future pandemic preparedness, according to Australia's Strengthening Pandemic Preparedness Response report. But I want to go into the Conceptual Zero draft again. James Roguski, I'm so grateful for this amazing man, and for you, Dr. Rima, and for everyone who works on this to get the word out to the world. This is the Conceptual Zero draft for the consideration of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body at its third meeting. 10 things everyone should know about the proposed pandemic treaty, what James has written in here, currently referred to as the Conceptual Zero draft, or WHO CA plus. So they just keep rebranding these things, don't they, Dr. Rima? They just keep rebranding them so that you wouldn't know what's really going on.
Precisely. It is tremendously important to understand. I asked, obviously I'm being facetious, I know the answer. There's no pandemic, there's no health emergency. And by the way, there's a very important case going on in British Columbia now, where all 5 million residents of British Columbia in Canada are currently included in a class action suit against the government of British Columbia because there was no health emergency,
Amazing.
says the suit. And if the courts find indeed that there was no health emergency, the harms that have been done for which the government is responsible are unthinkably enormous. And that's the kind of lawsuit, by the way, that should happen in every place where there is still a shred of the rule of law remaining, which is not every place. But the conceptual zero pandemic treaty thing, it's not even a document. They keep changing what it is. The secret negotiation thing has a couple of very, very interesting characteristics that I think are worth noting before we talk about what's in there.
Sure.
And that is what's not in there. What's not in there is, what's a pandemic? What's a case? What's contagion? What's a definition of control? What's a definition of lack of control? None of these. And
well, Australia's been incredibly masterful in rewording some of our language in our legislation, Dr. Rima. We're now calling things notifiable conditions. This is what's in the Public Health Act of 2005, notifiable condition. So anything that they deem, and this is why they changed the definition of pandemic, anything that they deem is now a notifiable condition that you need to be monitored and tracked and traced for is a notifiable condition. And it doesn't mean anything.
Means nothing. As we saw with monkeypox, Tedros, who is the Director General of the World Health Organization, and soon to be Director General of the world, with or without health, with or without organization, if we allow this to go on, if we do not exit our countries from the World Health Organization and from the United Nations, which to my mind is the only solution for this problem. But Tedros declared a disease from which maybe 4 people worldwide had ever died, kind of like Marburg virus. 4 people are known to ever have died from Marburg virus, which we're told is maybe the next pandemic. So Tedros said monkeypox is a public health emergency of international concern, a fake.
Yes.
And he said that because why not? He could say it. And he had zero substantiation. He said that it was a pandemic because there's no definition for a pandemic. Before Margaret Chan, the previous director of the World Health Organization, or I think the World Holocaust Organization would be actually a better name for it, before Margaret Chan eliminated the definition from the World Health Organization glossary and vocabulary, and pandemic stopped meaning a condition in which 7% of the affected people who have contracted a highly transmissible disease die. 7% dead was the definition of, in a highly transmissible condition, was the definition of a pandemic, and epidemiologists knew that. Before she eliminated that and said, basically, you know what? Pandemic's anything we say it is. And then Tedros said, tell you what, monkeypox is a pandemic and we have to protect people and we'll have a vaccine soon. Well, we have to especially protect children. How about, since monkeypox, as it was defined, misdefined, was said to only affect men who have sex with men, how about we protect children from having sex with men who might infect them with monkeypox, and then the kids won't get monkeypox? What do you say? No, that's not okay. What we need is a pandemic with preparedness and
injections.
Vaccine.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. An mRNA vaccine program for monkeypox. Understand, and your listeners do understand, mRNA injections control our genes. Our genes are the essence of our humanity. They are our past, our present, and our future. And if we give control of our past, our present, and our future, our essential humanity, over to monsters who want us either dead or enslaved, we are insane. We must, whatever they say the pandemic preparedness nonsense is, we must get our countries out of the World Health Organization and the United Nations so that anything they say, Maria, anything they declare, anything they pass has no legal meaning in our countries. If Australia were not a member nation of WHO and of the UN, they could do anything they wanted. They could make any decree they wanted, and it wouldn't have anything to do with your life, your health, your safety, your future, your fertility, your humanity.
Absolutely.
But as long as we allow our countries to remain within these death organizations, they will do what they say they're going to do. They will kill most of us. They will transhumanize the remaining ones of us, and they will enslave us in what's much worse than the 15-minute cities that the 6 largest cities in the world have agreed to become.
Are you asking what's worse than that?
Well, I don't know what's worse than that. I think death is better than that, actually.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people don't maybe fully understand what these 15-minute cities are. You and I have touched on it before. I presented recently, if people haven't seen that, when on the Alex Jones show, I showed how these are districts, and the New South Wales government has clearly outlined borders where you're not to leave your district. And people, of course, Dr. Rima, as I'm sure you've been subjected to, you're fear-mongering. Okay, so the Oxfordshire City Council has just announced that if you are to leave your zone, you're going to face fines. You know, if people would just believe us, if they would just believe...
They don't have to believe us. They can believe the Oxfordshire City Council.
Yes.
Because I published this on, I believe we put an article out both on opensourcetruth.com, which is our news aggregation site where you can sign up for our newsletter, and on Prevent Genocide 2030. Don't believe me. Believe the Oxfordshire Council.
Yes.
I didn't make this up. They did. I didn't say that there will be electronic gates and your car can, which you are allowed to have now, can leave those through those electronic gates out of your zone only 100 times a year. If you have 2 cars in your family, each car can leave only 50 times per year. And then you'll be tracked in terms of where you go and how far you go. And if you leave, you will be fined. Now, they're in Bath. A woman I know who is minded the way we are and very active in dealing with this, went to a meeting in Bath. And she did not know. She lives somewhere else. And she drove there. And she did not know that she had entered a green zone. But her car is not green zone certified. She received a series of fines because they took camera pictures of her plates, and she was in a green zone when her car wasn't green zone certified in a city where she didn't live and it wasn't marked. And she received a fine of so many pounds, and that doubled and tripled and doubled again and tripled again, and is now over £600 for driving to a meeting, parking, and going home.
Wow. Wow. That and this is how it happens. It happens slowly. It happens incrementally. It happens through the corporations, you know, buying into this green crap. And I'm not saying that I don't care for the environment. We should look after the planet that we live on. But the green that they're selling us has nothing to do with caring for the environment and everything to do with reducing your quality of life. So, and the earth is greening.
And eliminating your life.
Yes. Well, yeah, reducing the quality of your life if you still have it, if they haven't convinced you to commit suicide, assisted suicide by then. My goodness.
Or starved you to death by reducing food production or put you into intolerable situations where your body cannot maintain itself because of the lack of sanitation and the lack of nutrition. Or giving you toxic medications that are designed to kill you, like remdesivir.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, you know,
didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, anytime. But the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is we know, and the people that are viewing this right now, and if you're a first-time viewer and you're not subscribed and you're viewing on Rumble, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to Dr. Rima's newsletter. opensourcetruth.com is down on the bottom of your screen. There is always hope. But it will depend on people understanding the totality of this agenda. It is not just some bad times coming ahead. These people want you dead. They want you dead. Buried.
They've said it clearly.
Yes.
They're not keeping it a secret, folks. And if you say, oh, they don't really mean that, you're a fool. Let's be clear.
As difficult as it can be to conceive that there are real people in the world that are controlling every aspect of your life already, are going to have more control, and everything that they do is for your destruction and death. It is difficult to conceive that, but it's happening. So the sooner we face that, the quicker we can do something about it. Now, I've recently, Dr. Rima, because people always say to me, what's the solution? What's the solution? Okay. You are the solution. Every time you interact with a stranger, you need to tell them what's going on. Point them to whatever website you see most fit. I don't care if it's zmedia.com. Tell them somewhere that they can go. I'm telling Aussies to send them to zmedia.com because no one in this country has covered excuse me, the New World Order like we have. That's just the reality. But wherever you want to send them, I don't care. Just, we need people awake. Send them to a website that has all of the information. Explain to them what's going on. We can't, you know, I understand some people you can only drop little seeds with, and that's fine. That's all you'll ever be able to do, but you can't stay silent. And what we need is people to take action. Now, this website that you've given me, which we've shared before, Dr. Rima, preventgenocide2030.org. I want to ask you, is this predominantly resources for the United States, or can they be adapted?
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
If you go to preventgenocide2030.org and you click on the Act Now tab, the drop-down button says Propose New Action. Why isn't there an Australian no vaccine passport action? Why isn't there a New Zealand one? Why isn't there an Indonesian one? Why isn't there an Argentinian one? In any language you want. You have a tool. You can pound the decision makers and say, you've heard me say this before, Maria, the three most important words of people who want to survive and who want their societies and their families to survive. Those words are, in my simple mind, don't you dare. And unless and until, see, it's not enough in my view. I have to disagree with you. You know, I love what you're doing and I love how you're doing it, and I'm honored to be here, but I disagree with you. What I disagree with you about is by getting people alerted, by telling people, oh my God, this is real, you have to take action. Yes, step one. But then the action has to be to go electronically and through videos and through radios and letters to the editor and church socials and whatever the hell you want, to go effectively and say no to the people who want to bring these measures step by step. Maybe they're misguided. Maybe they've drunk the Kool-Aid and they think this is great stuff and we're all going to be happier. I don't care what they think. I don't care what their motivation is. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's sexual blackmail. I don't care. I don't care what their motivation is. I know what my motivation is. I know what my motivation for humanity is. And that is, no, don't you dare impose these things on us. So if people just talk, there are a lot of people around the world who are talking. There are groups of doctors and lawyers and journalists and biostatisticians and political scientists, and they're talking. They're talktivists. They're having a great time informing each other. By now, we know that the jabs kill. By now, we know that the globalist plan, the entire Agenda 2030 plan, in all of its disgusting detail, that whole plan is designed to do us damage and kill most of us. And if we're still playing around talking and sharing data, we're going to be really well informed on the way to the gas chamber, in line, politely saying, oh, please excuse me, thank you. No, we have to take action. And the best action I know is to get us the hell out of WHO and the United Nations. Does that solve the international banking problem? No. Does it get rid of the people who cooked up this evil? Not yet. But it certainly does weaken their ability to do what they want to do to us, which is kill us and enslave the remnant after they take over our genetic and neural makeup. So talking is not enough. Informing is not enough. Yeah, you got to do that. But you have to take action. And the reason we created PreventGenocide2030.org and any place else that does it too is to push the action item saying to the people who have control of our lives, our future, our existence, no. And if you're not doing that, I don't mean you, Maria, I'm pointing at your picture because you're on my screen. But if people are not doing that, then they are signing their own death warrants.
Yes, well, again, first and foremost, important for them to know the resource exists. So this is why we're highlighting it today. And I agree with you, Dr. Rima. It's not just about being informed. It's about what do we do afterwards. And I believe a lot of people are willing to do something. It's just that they're not sure where to start. And they witness this chaos unfolding and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. And I can appreciate that.
And that's intentional.
Of course it is.
People are supposed to be overwhelmed.
Of course. But what I will say is that Australia needs some sort of a resource like this, and it needs one place to go where action items can be taken. So I'm putting the challenge out there because the platform is here to let people know about it. I'm putting the challenge out there because you know what saddened me, Dr. Rima? When the new legislation was proposed in Australia where authorized COVID officers, whoever they may be, people on a power trip in white suits like the stormtroopers in China, you know, in WA, they can come into your home without a warrant, seize your property, take your kids, take you to a quarantine camp, forcefully inject you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, right? They put this out into legislation. And such a small amount of people were making a fuss about it. And no one actually started a website where people could, you know, consolidate all of the information required for these people. James Roguski did. Someone from the other side of the world said, I need to help the Western Australian people. Now, perhaps there was, you know, a smaller website or, you know, a smaller Facebook page or something like that. But the coordination and the exact action that was required just wasn't there. And so what I'm asking people is if you find this resource to be helpful, start something on there. I'm going to bring it up again at PreventGenocide2030.org.
If you want us to put up an Australian page for the Australian actions, we'll do that. If people want a Uruguayan page, we'll put that up. When South Africa's health regulations, which means ill health and death regulations, were being proposed, which are exactly what you're saying, which are exactly like the New York State regulations. When they were being proposed, I sprang into action and I created an action item with Sabelo in South Africa. And they were able to push that back and they were able to force it into the courts where I believe it stands now. Why? Why did I do that? For the same reason that James did what he did for Western Australia. He happened to get there first. We work together very closely. We meet on a daily basis. We all have to do this for each other because it's the same problem. What happened in New York was happening in South Africa, not because they talk to each other, but because they're both puppets controlled from above. And so whatever it is that, I mean, this is a fabulously powerful resource, but only if people use it. Agreed. You know, we have somebody in Canada who put out an action item, and in just a few days we had more than 2 million emails that went to the members of Parliament in Canada, and they backed off. And the Prime Minister of or the Premier of Alberta says, we're going to secede. We're going to dump WEF. We're going to dump the United Nations. We're going to dump the World Health Organization, because people said, we don't want this.
Yes.
Now, whether she can do that, that's another matter. But that takes political force. And what we're talking
she'll
about,
do
Maria,
it if her colleagues join in, if her colleagues are aware.
Exactly.
I just spoke to a senator recently who said most people in Parliament aren't even aware that this is happening. They're starting to wake up, but they don't even know. They just go along with it, like the drone doctors that go along with injecting people with a death shot and think they're doing something right. It's the same thing with these societal drones. They need to be woken up. And so when people put public pressure on these people, it forces them to go and educate themselves and do something about it. Write to your MPs, write to your... So I'm putting the challenge out there for Aussies. If you don't do this, if someone doesn't take the initiative and do this, these are some of the things that are being proposed. This recognizing the central role of the WHO in pandemic prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery of health systems as the directing and coordinating authority on international health work, or whatever, in cooperation in global health governance with the director of the WHO that has previously been accused of genocide. Central role of the WHO as directing and coordinating authority in global health and the leader of multilateral cooperation in global health governance. WHO is fundamental to strengthening pandemic prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery of health systems. What recovery of health systems do we have right now? What has the WHO done to recover our health systems? We've got nurses protesting, going on strike because they're underpaid and overworked. All of the injection reaction victims inside their hospitals, all of the people exploding with COVID from this injection that did nothing but cause more sickness, right? Enhance the WHO's central role as the directing and coordinating authority of international health work. The undefined words pandemic has been used 112 times, undefined response 106 times. What? There's no doctor, there's no early treatment, there's no natural, there's no vitamins, herbs, essential medicines, gain of function. None of that has been mentioned in this document that's proposed on how they're going to fix the world through global health governance. Nothing. I'm telling you right now, and Dr. Rima will back up what I'm saying, these people want to put in place to forcefully inject you and your children and take you off to quarantine facilities. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. They want you injected or dead.
They want you docile and servile or dead. And they don't need very many of the docile, servile people. They don't need very many. I will tell again the story, a little piece of the story of the head of state who was a patient of mine in 2002, 2003, who first clued me in to the fact that this was very real. She said to me, and forgive me if you've heard this before, but you need to share this with people. She said to me, it's almost time for the great culling to begin. And I said, the what? And she said, culling, C-U-L-L. I said, I know the word. What are you talking about? She said, the culling of the useless eaters. I said, what's a useless eater? She said, not what, my dear. Who? I said, okay, who's a useless eater? She said, those people who are consuming our non-renewable natural resources. Now that translates, by the way, to those people who are warming our planet by living and by farming and by having cows that fart and so on. By having cars, by having property. Those people who are messing up our world. And I said to her, did it ever occur to you that you're consuming their natural resources? And she said, oh, that's an interesting idea. Well, anyway, dismissing that, I said, so how many of these useless eaters are you planning on culling? And she said, 90%. And I said, 90% of what? Because I'm not a psychopath, and I couldn't wrap my mind. I think pretty fast, Maria, but I couldn't think that fast, and I had no idea she could possibly be saying what I heard her say. I said, 90% of what? She said, the current world's population. I said, wait a minute. Your enormous wealth has been made by selling vast amounts of shit to huge numbers of people. If you don't have huge numbers of people to sell your shit to, how are you going to maintain your enormous wealth? And she said, oh no, my dear, you don't understand. We are moving toward a neo-feudal society. There will be us, the neo-aristocrats at the top, surrounded by our servants and servitors below, and below them our technicians, and that will require no more than 10% of the current population. Everyone else is extraneous. That's what she said to me, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this woman is clearly crazy. The question is, did she just give me her inner psychosis that's based on nothing, or has she given me an important clue that I need to follow? So I followed the clue, and I discovered that that was precisely what was articulated in their well-laid plans. And that was back in 2002, 2003. From that, I decided that I needed to deal with this, and I needed to help treat the body politic rather than the bodies of individuals. So my husband, General Stubblebine, and I closed our medical practice, sold our house so we'd have some money, and created an effort to help derail the global plans of these monsters. And that's what we're talking about today. You must say no, and you must say no in mass. That is the only hope that I can see. That is the only issue, in my estimation, that matters. Everything else is allopathic. It is a suppression of symptoms to deal with anything except the death machine.
I agree with you, Dr. Rima. And again, I'm bringing it up for everyone. PreventGenocide2030.org. This is a public challenge. If you dare, please go onto the website, create action items. My recommendations for Australia, but every country alike, are exit the WHO, exit the WEF, exit the United Nations. These particular action items need to happen. And, you know, should you create those, email, contact zeemedia.com, contact, share a story, email me. Once you've actually gone to the effort of doing this, I will share it. I will ask people to get involved in it. This is the only way.
I will do the same from my side of the world.
Wonderful.
We need to support each other.
Agreed. Because the reality is, if people don't realize, and this needs to happen while you're simultaneously continuing to tell people the truth. Both things are important. If people don't realize, our future depends on one another. Our future depends on one another. So if we sit back and say it's hopeless, they've won.
Yes.
If we sit back and give up the fight just because it seems too hard, they've won. I will never, ever lay down and die and just roll over and take this madness from these freaks. I will never, ever concede to the war that has been waged on me and just say, wave my white flag and say it's all too hard. I will never do that. And I know that there are so many strong people watching this that will never, ever let them win. And you know what? We will rather die standing than live on our knees. And as much as that's been used a lot, I mean that. I mean it with all my heart and all of my soul. No evil maniac will ever take control of my life. And so for everyone that takes this seriously, I'm asking you, please take the action necessary. Email me. I will share it. Let's get people involved in this. Let's put a stop to this once and for all, because time is running out. Dr. Rima Laibow, opensourcetruth.com. Any other links you want to share with people before we wrap this up today?
First of all, what she said. What she said is your rallying cry and your truth, or you're a fit slave and you're fit compost. It's that clear. It's that important. And there's no intermediate position. Well, I think maybe. No. There's really nothing except their way or our way, their inhumanity and murderous way or our way to freedom. There's nothing in between. Now is the time when we have to fight that battle. But from my point of view, we need to fight that battle without using weapons that kill. Because once we do that, once we resort to violence, they come in with their massive armamentarium of weapons that we don't even think about, frequency weapons, et cetera, et cetera.
Frequency weapons.
And we're done.
It's not even,
No
people think that there aren't enough army to defend. No, guys, they have frequency weapons. They will simply send a sound wave and you're gone. And not a sound wave, sorry, a radio wave.
Yeah.
Boil your eyes, yep.
Or they just turn on the 5G and destroy you right then and there. So this is massively immediate. This has been
and I want to add there, Dr. Rima, because our authorities are insane. I'm not calling for violence either.
No.
You know, I'm not saying that is the way. I'm not. But I'm also saying it's also not productive because of the fact that they have weapons we don't even know about. Sorry, do go on.
Both are true. And there are people calling for armed insurrection, and that's like saying, kill me. Kill me now. No, that's not going to work. But we do have weapons. We have the weapon of truth. We have the weapon, so far, of mass communication. And I will tell you that, you know, if there's another website like Prevent Genocide 2030 with those tools, use that too. The more the merrier. The more we can pound on the decision-making people, pound on the puppets and tell them, no, you're my puppet. If you're anybody's puppet, you're my puppet. You're not their puppet. Because there are 1 million of us, 10 million of us, 100 million of us who are saying, no, don't you dare. And we have to say it consistently. If there's another site like this, if there are other tools, use them. This is the time when anything else pales in comparison to what is going on now. Oh, well, you know, I'm busy. I really have to finish this book. Right. You don't.
Well, you'll have time to finish it today. But I don't know if you'll have the opportunity to write your book from a camp. I don't think they'll give you that. And even if they give you some free time to write your book, they probably won't let you publish it because you're a dissident. You can't be trusted and you need to be re-educated while they feed you composted human corpses. I mean, this is the world that they are trying to build for us.
And crickets.
And crickets, correct. And while we have the power, while we still have the power, we need to do whatever we can. Dr. Rima, I know people are tired. I don't deny that. I go through it myself. I look and I think, gosh, this is overwhelming. But if we lose that fire, and if we lose that, if we lose it, then we've lost everything. Then we've lost everything.
We have each other. We have each other. You and I have never met. I can call you up, you can call me, and I can say, oh my God, have you heard the latest? It is so overwhelming. And we can be a support system for one another without ever having met. And we must be. But we can also do that electronically. Look at this video. Set this out. In preparing for this talk, I listed on our Skype chat a number of videos, and I said, share these. It's important. We strengthen one another by exposing our strengths to one another, our resources to one another, and our weaknesses to one another. Because we're human, and we have to be able to say, this is so much, this is so overwhelming, I despair, and then hear from another person, yeah, I was there last week, but you know, here's my new thing, here's what I'm doing, try this. Give this out to your people. See what happens. We must be an army of compassion and strength and wisdom and strategy. And then we will prevail. And if not, there's no point living in a world like the one that they have constructed for us, where you will own nothing and you will be happy. Mm-hmm. Really?
Absolutely.
Is that what you want?
I absolutely agree with you, Dr. Rima. I will not. I cannot imagine staying silent when I know what the plans are for humanity. It is absolutely astounding to me. that anyone would. And I know that the people that view my videos and these broadcasts are good people. Dr. Rima, I know because many of them are in my Telegram channel, and I see the way that they interact with what's going on in the world, and they're good people. And many people on the side of freedom and truth are good people, and I know that they want to put a stop to this. So I'm asking again, according to today, the challenge is out there. Please, if you do create an action item, please do email me, zeemedia.com, contact form. Let me know that you've done it. Dr. Rima and I will raise the awareness that this is happening, and we'll get people involved again. I know we're coming up to Christmas for a lot of people. They want some time off. You know, I'm going to have a couple of days with my family, but I never, ever rest because I know that they're out there plotting their next moves against us. Dr. Rima, thank you so much for all of your hard work, all of your years of dedication. We're really grateful for you.
Yeah, and I want to celebrate the work and the consistency, the dedication and the determination that you put into everything that you're doing, Maria. It's inspiring. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Dr. Rima. It means a lot coming from you. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Have a lovely, lovely day. And for everyone watching this, share this and inspire others to keep going.
Aviso. ¿Qué se entiende por libertad de expresión? La libertad de expresión es el derecho de pensar y compartir con otras personas ideas, reflexiones y opiniones, es decir, el derecho a razonar y dar a conocer pensamientos y conocimiento. La libertad de expresión también incluye el derecho a buscar, recibir y difundir ideas, opiniones e informaciones por cualquier medio y con personas de cualquier otro país. Nadie tiene el derecho de prohibir o limitar la libertad de expresión. La libertad de expresión no está restringida a un medio tradicional o electrónico, incluye periódicos, revistas, radio, televisión y medios digitales. El derecho a la libertad de expresión no está limitado o condicionado por las fronteras de los países hacia otros países y desde cualquier lugar. Artículo 6 y 7 de la Constitución Política de los Estados Unidos Mexicanos y artículo 19 de la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos.